Warriors, welcome to episode number 322 of the Anxiety Guy podcast. I'm Dennis Simsek, and thank you for joining me this week. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and if you are and it's helping you, please give it a positive rate and review. As well, if you want to learn more about any of my anxiety recovery programs to structure in your healing journey, head over to theanxietyguy.com today. And my friends, recently in the last week, I've tried very hard, in fact, meditated on this idea of placing myself back into the mind, body, and spirit of an anxiety sufferer. So my intention before the meditation was always to place myself into what it feels like, what we think like, what we act like, what we identify with as an anxiety sufferer. And many times for me, I feel like I have to go back sometimes because I feel like I've reached a point in my life where anxiety is no longer in the present. And I'm feeling a lot freer from moment to moment, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, and with a brand new identity. So it was important for me this week to tap back into what it was truly like. And as far as the mental aspect goes of suffering from anxiety, there's something there that anxiety sufferers have a very difficult time tapping into. And I want to talk about this a little bit today. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself and ask yourself a question such as, is this the case for me in this aspect of my life that is in fact leading my life towards anxiety? And what I'm talking about today is acting without choosing. Acting without choosing. So much of anxiety is conscious at this point, right? Yes, panic attacks happen, panic disorder happens because of unconscious triggers that are picked up within the environment and environments that are perceived as threats. We understand this. But so much of anxiety today is in fact being in our heads too much, therefore falling victim to the sensations and symptoms that are within the head region. We're talking about depersonalization, we're talking about dizziness, we're talking about a feeling of lacking memory, okay, especially short-term memory. We're talking about a lack of concentration, the ability to focus on one particular thing for a set period of time. We're talking about symptoms and sensations related to stagnant energy that is stuck within the head area. That's what we're talking about today. And so if we've got all this stagnant energy and all these sensations and symptoms that seem to be leading the way in terms of symptoms of anxiety disorders today, stuck in the head region, the key must be to get the energy flowing back throughout the entire body once again. And in order for this to happen, what must we do? Well, the simple answer is to move from focusing so much on problem solving in the head area and moving it into the heart area once again. But anxiety sufferers have a very difficult time acting without contemplating, acting without overthinking, acting without having to choose the exact proper answer that fits with their particular challenge. And isn't this the biggest challenge? Because anxiety sufferers get to a point where they don't want to make any more decisions because they're exhausted and they're overwhelmed and they're depleted. An anxiety sufferer can go to a restaurant with their loved one, the person they are most comfortable with, most supportive with, and yet it still feels like the biggest chore in the entire world. Why? Because of decisions. That's why. If I go out to the restaurant and I have dinner tonight doing something spontaneous, then I'm going to have to make decisions that I don't want to because I'm already depleted on the inside. I've got adrenal fatigue. I'm hitting a wall by the time it's 1 or 2 p.m. I need to take a nap pretty much for the entire day, every day. I don't like facing people. I don't like facing my job. I don't like facing the world. Is it their fault? No. No. Why isn't it their fault? Because they didn't choose to live this way. Anxiety sufferers didn't choose to be anxiety sufferers. Yes, there are components here. We can consider generational trauma to be one of those components. We can consider belief systems that were ingrained into us within childhood to be one of those components. We can choose traumatic events in childhood and adulthood that created the blueprint of what reality is really like. It's not their fault that they're anxiety sufferers. It's not your fault. Back to the restaurant. How is it that it's so difficult to go to a restaurant when we know it's the right thing to do for us, but in fact we have so much fear to do it? Like I said, because of decisions. We have to choose what to eat. We have to choose where to sit. We have to choose what to wear. We have to choose what to say to people that we're going to meet for the first time that night. Do you think all of this is easy? It's not easy. You can ask somebody who is more so at a neutral emotional state whether this is easy or not, and they'll say, oh, it's easy. It's fun. It's spontaneous. I really enjoy going out for dinner. Ask an anxiety sufferer that, for the most part, and they'll say, goodness me, feels like I'm climbing Mount Everest, right? I don't blame you. I've been there. I've been there. So let's take away the guilt. Let's take away the shame. Let's take away all of these things and come from a more understanding place today. We're dealing with the ability that we need to tap into, which is acting without choosing. Acting without choosing means I look at the menu in terms of what I want to eat, I pick my top 3, and I choose one of those 3. And that's the end of it. I don't place any more unnecessary energy or time or focus into what I'm going to eat. That's it. The waiter comes around and asks me how I'm doing. I don't check into my mind to edit every single answer that arises within those first 5 seconds. No. How are you doing? Just fine, thank you. Whoa, that's different. That's different, right? I'm not overthinking. I'm not adding to my limited willpower points anymore, right? I'm no longer depleting myself at such a level by answering quickly, by acting quickly, right? So what does this mean? This means that we are allowing our hearts to answer and to problem solve in those moments of being challenged rather than divert our energy to our minds, which only confuses us even further and depletes us of our willpower points to the point where we get home at night and the only thing we truly want is a beer, a burger, or fries, or some chips in order to feel better for a short period of time again, because we don't know what it's like to feel that good again, right? Throughout the entire day we've suffered. Can you blame someone who wants to come home and eat junk food at night? You tell them all the time, this is bad for you. Yeah, but I need to start feeling better. Okay, I've been in that place. Yes, these habits need to change, but first and foremost, we have to see the world from an anxiety sufferer's point of view. So what am I saying here? I'm saying, as you go through the day, act without choosing. Act without choosing, and you're going to find that you feel a sense of deep vulnerability. Like you're going to make a mistake. Like people aren't going to agree with you. Like you're going to have to sacrifice some things. You're going to feel like you're stepping out of your comfort zone a lot. Is this a good thing? Yes. Because what I'm mainly concerned about here is we need to make sure that we preserve this finite source of resource within us called our energy. Okay, we only have a finite amount of it. So when you act without having to choose, okay, without having to divert your attention back to your mind to make an answer based on your overthinking patterns, you're saving energy. You're saving yourself. This contributes to your optimal health, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, everything. This allows us to give ourselves a pass in order to be more spontaneous in our lives. This is the biggest thing we're missing. Anxiety sufferers have a massively long checklist the moment they wake up in the day. Okay? The morning says, I cannot experience any kind of physical sensation or symptom in my body, or else it's a bad day. What else is on the checklist? I must not be criticized by anybody throughout this day, or it will be a bad day. I've been here. Right? I must not experience X, or else it's going to be a bad day. I must not hear this. I must not run into this, or else it's going to be a bad day. Right? It's almost like at an unconscious level, we're looking for those bad days because it's been so common in our lives. But when we act without choosing, we're placing our faith into an intelligence within us that we haven't used for a very long time. Right? That intelligence is connected to our heart sense, which is connected to our intuition, which is connected to spontaneity, which is connected to being a child again, an uncorrupted child. Corrupted child, belief systems of others. Uncorrupted child, belief systems made up through our own personal ideas. Boy, were we spontaneous when we were kids. Holy moly. Mommy, I want to go on the swing. Which swing? I don't care. Just take me to the swing. Wow. Nowadays, our children go to the swings. We watch them go to the swings. And anxiety sufferers look around and say, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could tap into that. I wish I could be that playful again. Why can't you? Why can't you go on that swing without thinking? You can. Why can't you go on that slide without thinking about what the outcome's going to be? Who's going to watch you go down the slide? How silly they're going to think about you. Your healing is dependent on your level of playfulness. Let me say that again. Your healing is dependent on your level of playfulness because playfulness connects to neuroplasticity. Our brains are very much neuroplastic. They have the ability to rewire themselves and create new associations. And your ability to be playful amplifies the neuroplasticity within your brain. Do you know how important this is? This is neuroscience we're talking here, not just specifically experience. So what will you do today? Will you go on that swing? Will you fall back in love with yourself? Will you put the thinking aside and follow your heart? Will you stop examining everything and just simply reflect on things temporarily? Will you live this life where you feel like you're swimming naked while people are watching you? Because that's the path you have to go through in order to find inner peace, in order to find healing. People run away from being vulnerable. You can't run from vulnerability. You have to run towards vulnerability. You run towards vulnerability. This is the path. So stop trying to make each and every one of your days match each and every one of your days. Right? Your past doesn't have to be your present. Your future doesn't have to be your past. Starting today, act without choosing. Tap into this. Put your heart into it, and I promise you, you're going to benefit tremendously, as I did, as everybody else does, who have healed their anxiety disorders. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Are you enjoying this podcast? If so, please give it a positive rate and review. And if you know anybody suffering out there, please share this podcast with them so that we can help them as well. Remember that you are more than anxiety. I'll see you at theanxietyguy.com. Bye-bye.